यत्तु कामेप्स्युना कर्म साहंकारेण वा पुनः क्रियते बहुलायासं तत् राजसमुदाहृतम्. In the context of discussing the nature of work, Krishna classifies work, the actions that we do, into three categories. First, he takes up classification of jnana, and then he takes up classification of karma. And he first talks about the nature of work, that is sattvic. And then he comes to rajasic nature of work. The moment we talk about action, work, we have to necessarily discuss desire. Kamamaya evayam purusha iti. Sa yatha kamo bhavati tat kratur bhavati. Yat kratur bhavati tat karma kurute. Yat karma kurute tatapi sampadyate. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad declares the criticality of desire. It is desire that runs our lives. Kamamaya evayam purusha iti. The Upanishad says, you are what your driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. Desire, deed, destiny. They are all inexorably intertwined, interconnected, one impacting the other. When the desire is for the world, the destiny will be only in the world. When kama is Vishaya kama, one continues to be trapped in samsara. When kama becomes Bhagavad kama, desire for Krishna, then one gets freedom from the trap of samsara and Krishna becomes the destiny. Now, last week, we concluded with a reflection on the process of desire. The process of desire involves the desirer, the desire, and the desirable. The desire is essentially the process that connects the desirer with the desirable. In this world, there are so many desirables. There are so many desirables, a variety of desirables. And the desirer connects with the desirable by desiring. Now, what we understood was that when jnana is sattvika in nature, when we have sattvika jnana, we understand that all these three, desirer, desire, and desirable, are connected with Krishna. Desirer is connected with Krishna, desirable is connected with Krishna, and even desire is connected with Krishna. How is the desirer connected with Krishna? The desirer, the individual Atman, the Jivatma, is a part of the Paramatma. The Jivatma belongs to Krishna. The desirer belongs to Krishna. Everything that is desirable in this world only reflects a spark of the supreme desirability of Krishna. Therefore, the very desirability of every desirable object in this world is only Krishna. The source of desirability is Krishna. And therefore the purpose of desire is to connect the Jivatma with the Paramatma, to connect the soul with the whole. When jnana is sattvika in nature, then one understands that all the three parts of the process of desiring are connected with Krishna. But when the jnana is rajasic in nature, one only sees disconnection, one only sees separation. Rajasic jnana presents a disintegrated view of the world. With Rajasic jnana, one only sees differences, diversity. One cannot understand the underlying unity. One tends to believe that every individual entity is disconnected and independent. And therefore, when jnana is rajasic in nature, the desirables are many and the desirables compete for attention. And since the desirables are many, the desires are many as well. And life is all about managing the desires or inability to manage the desires. It is all about managing the desires, giving attention to desires, fulfilling the desires, and in that process, one does not realize that the desire can become independent of the individual. And the desires can start working against us. Whether we realize it or not, most often our desires work independent of our own will, and they work most often against us. Desiring is a very unique human power. But unfortunately, if that power is not harnessed, it can work against us. Knowingly or unknowingly, we end up desiring unwanted things. We end up desiring what is against our long-term interests. When Rajasic jnana dominates, when the world is all about matter, what matters is matter alone, then our desire is only for sense gratification. And in the process of chasing power, possessions, we end up being empty, incomplete. There is no question of fulfillment of desires. Desires are constantly chased, but there can be no enduring satisfaction. There cannot be fulfillment of desires. And that is the reason why Krishna talks about the importance of sattvika jnana. And with lack of sattvika jnana, one is ruled by desires. And this is where Krishna now talks about work that is driven by rajasic jnana, which is work that is rajasic in nature. Yattu kamepsuna karma. Yattu kamepsuna karma. Sa ahankarena va punaha. Kriyate bahulayasam. Tad rajasam udahritam. Now, when there is rajasic jnana, the world is seen as disintegrated. Everything is independent, and every object is independent of each other and competes for our attention, and desires are limiting. They only present material reality. And therefore, when there is rajasic jnana, because of number of desires and number of desirables, we end up so much time wasting our energies in terms of choosing our desires. There is so much to choose. There is so much competing for our attention. There is so much that takes up our consciousness. Therefore, the mind expends a lot of energy. We need to constantly calculate the effort that it takes to chase one object over the other. Lot of energy is expended in the process of doing rajasic work. Why? Because not only physical, our mind also is involved in constantly looking at evaluating things. We always label everything that we see. Every desirable object has a value and a label according to our own mind, and that value and label can differ for each one of us. But we do label everything, we do value everything, and then when the values are different, then we are trying to choose one over the other constantly, and these values keep changing all the time. The desirability objects keep changing all the time. A lot of effort is expended in that process. Yattu kamepsuna karma ahankarena va punah kriyate bahulayasam, Krishna says. Tat rajasamudahritam. Ettu kamepsuna karma. Here, the kama that Krishna is talking of, the desire, is that desire which is for fulfilling bodily needs, sense gratification. Work that is done for the sake of sense gratification. Work that is done with pride. Work that is done with self-importance. Work that is done based on arrogance. Work that is done where the focus is on one's ego. Work that is done by expending lot of effort, lot of strain, lot of stress. That kind of work is rajasic in nature. No wonder, we are all strained and stressed leading our lives because we are constantly doing rajasic work. Every action that we perform is rajasic in nature. In the process, that leaves us stressed out all the time because we are expending unnecessary energy all the time. Yattu kamepsuna karma. We need to understand karma, the power of desire. In the journey of life, just like how in the journey of driving a car, just like how the fuel that drives the engine is as important as the fuel that drives the front lights. In the car, we need fuel for both the engine and the front lights. Our desire is like that fuel. Our desire. Now, the fuel determines the capacity of the car because it is the fuel that drives the engine, and the capacity of the car is determined by the capacity of the engine. Similarly, our desires determine our capacity to work. Our capacity to work is determined by our desire. Not only that, when we are driving, it is the front lights which determine, which give us the vision, which illuminate the direction towards which we are driving. Similarly, our desires illuminate, the desires determine the vision of our desired objects. So therefore, our desires drive our work. Our desires also determine what we see. When any work that is done, desires do two things. Our capacity to do work is determined by our desires. Stronger our desire, greater is our capacity to do work. Weaker is our desire, weaker is our capacity to do work. Similarly, our desires also determine our vision of what we see. Now, our world is nothing but the cumulative of all our desired objects. Whatever we don't desire do not belong to our world. If we do not desire something, it is completely out of our world. My world is different from your world because my world is based on what I desire. Anything I do not desire is not even in my vision. My world is made up of a set of all my desired objects. So therefore, if our jnana is rajasic in nature, we only see partial reality, a part of reality which is the matter alone matters. When our worldview is only materialistic, our desires are also materialistic. So therefore, rajasic jnana disempowers us by limiting our vision. And with Rajasic nature of work is where the desires are materialistic in nature, only fulfilling bodily needs, sense gratification. Now, desires are endless. The more we fulfill, they seem to subside, they seem to go away, but that going away is only momentary. It is just a matter of time. A desire that is fulfilled may seem to go away momentarily, but it is only a matter of time before it comes back with vengeance, with more force, with more ferocity. And we see this in our day-to-day experience. That is why Krishna says, Kamayesha, Krodayesha, Rajoguna Samudbhavaha, Mahasano Mahapapma, Vidyeva Iha Vairinam, he says. Hey Arjuna, if you have to know your true enemy, know your desires. Your desires are your true enemies. Why? Because they are endless. The more we fulfill those desires, we think we fulfill, we satisfy, but the stronger they get, and they are endless in nature. Now we need to ask this question. Is the endlessness of a desire a problem? If we really analyze, it is not the endlessness of a desire which is the problem. The problem is with not the endless desire, but the object of the desire which has an end. Let me repeat. The problem is not with the endless desire, but with the object of the desire which has an end. Which means the desire that we have for everything around in this world has an end, is temporary, is fleeting in nature. So the problem is not with the desire per se, it is the problem with the end, the object of the desire. If the object of the desire is temporary, then the desire will never get fulfilled. It is endless in nature because of the nature of the desire, the object. Also, not only is the nature of the object which has an end, the desirability of the objects also has an end. Anything that we desire today, its desirability changes. A beautiful rose today is no longer beautiful tomorrow. The desirability of a beautiful flower has a shelf life. What is desirable today is not desirable tomorrow. So therefore, the endlessness of desire per se is not the problem. It is the nature of the object of the desire which has an end, which is the problem. It is the nature of the desirability of the object which has an end, which is the problem. How do we resolve this problem? We can resolve this problem if the desire that is endless in nature also is given a perfect end. And how do we do that? By directing the desire to someone whose desirability is endless. When the desire is for Krishna, whose desirability is endless, then endlessness of that desire is no longer a problem. It is in fact, it is the right thing to cultivate. Endlessness of desire for Krishna is nothing but mumukshatva. So therefore, desire, when it is given the right direction, then becomes really powerful, and this is where we get freedom in action, not freedom from action. We continue to do work, but we do work based on love for Krishna. So when Krishna is describing here work that is rajasic in nature, yettu kamepsuna karma, this kama is kama, desire for objects which have an end, desire for objects which have desirability that ends sooner or later. That kind of a desire is an unhealthy desire. When desire is unhealthy, the nature of work is also unhealthy. So every action, every work that is rajasic in nature is unhealthy. Yettu kamepsuna karma sa ahankarena va punaha. Now, rajasic work not only is driven by selfish desires, rajasic work is also done with pride. with ahankara. Sa ahankarena va punaha. Ahankara, ego. Ego is like a trident which has 3 prongs. And this trident with 3 prongs called ego keeps constantly attacking us without us knowing. What are the 3 prongs of this trident called ego? The 3 prongs are fame, fame, blame, shame. 3 prongs of a trident of an ego. Fame, blame, shame. How does it work? Any work that we do, when we start giving self-importance, when the focus is not the work, when the attention is the ego and not the work, then the work is done by giving undue importance to oneself. Every time we work with the basic belief, with the myth that it is I who am doing this work, and I am so very important. I am at the center of this world. Self-importance, undue importance to oneself in the work that is done. It is because of the focus, attention that is given to ego and not to the work itself. So instead of work getting the attention, it is one's ego. And the work is done for the sake of the approval of the world. Work is done for the sake of acceptance by the world. Work is done for the sake of recognition by the world. And when there is no approval, then we are stressed out. When there is no recognition, we are stressed out. Why? Because the work is built on the edifice of self-importance. The work is built on the edifice that I am at the center of this world, which unfortunately is not a fact. And because this entire premise of doing this work is based on falsity, that kind of work will always be stressful. Work is always done for fame, and there can never be lasting fame. So therefore, when there is ahankara, the first prong of the trident keeps attacking us all the time. Work for the sake of fame, work for the sake of fame, self-importance, and it always is counterproductive. That kind of a work is never productive. The second prong of the trident of ahankara, blame. Any work that is done with the foundation of ego, when the result is not in line with what is expected, then the ego starts to find someone or something to be blamed, because the ego cannot accept a situation which is not in line with what was expected, and therefore the blame game starts all the time. So the work that is done with ahankara, we are always trying to blame someone or something for the results that ensue. There is no responsibility taken, there is no accountability taken. Always trying to find, when something bad happens, again, what is bad is a label that we give. Something that happens which is not in line with our expectations, immediately we start finding excuses to blame someone or something. The third prong of the trident of ahankara is shame. Now, if there is nobody to blame, then the ego immediately decides to shame itself. This is a guilt trip that everyone goes through. If you cannot blame anybody, then start blaming oneself. This is we start becoming guilty and we get into a depression, blaming ourselves, shaming ourselves. Sahankarena va punaha. Work that is rajasic in nature is done with a focus, with attention given to the ego, and in that process, the work itself does not get its due attention. Kriyate bahulayasam. Kriyate bahulayasam. Work that is done with lot of strain, lot of stress, lot of effort, hard work. We we all take pride in being go-getters. We say one has to be a go-getter. Yes, one has to be a go-getter, provided one must know where to go and what to get. What is the point in being a go-getter if one doesn't know where to go and what to get? We keep just going around in circles and wasting energy and becoming stressful all the time. Now here, if we see, nature teaches us how to actually work with energy efficiency. Now our body is designed perfectly to generate, store and expend the right amount of energy that is needed. We only have to look at nature and see. A flower blooms without any effort. It doesn't try to blossom, it blossoms without any effort. Grass grows. Grass doesn't try to grow, it grows with no effort. A bird flies. It doesn't try to fly, it flies with no effort. When we look around in nature, everything in God's creation is designed to operate with least effort. It looks like only human beings seem to be spending so much of effort, expending a lot of energy and effort, when this entire creation is working on the principle of least effort. Humans are also expected to operate on the principle of no effort or least effort, which is what Krishna teaches. Yajñātthāt karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadattam karma kaunteya muktas sangas samāchara. Yajna is nothing but law of least effort. Yajna is essentially working in such a way that the work that we do is frictionless. The work that we do is effortless. This is what nature does, because nature is designed on the principle of yajna. Everything is frictionless in nature. Everything is done effortlessly. Even little babies, they are in bliss. They don't try to be in bliss. But as they grow up, then one needs to try to be in bliss. Why? Because as they grow up, the ego also starts to grow. Only when the ego starts to come into play, then it looks like additional effort seems to be needed. It is only because of the play of our ego, when the reference of the work that we do is the ego, then we end up spending extra time, extra effort, because it is in defending our self-importance. We spend a lot of energy. It is in resisting situations as they unfold that we spend a lot of energy. It is in non-acceptance of the results that we spend a lot of energy. It is in defending our expectations that we spend a lot of energy. It is because of the play of the ego, instead of working on the principle of least effort, we work on the principle of maximum effort. We end up working very hard. We're working very hard when everything can be accomplished with minimum effort. Now our Shastras talk about maximum results based on minimum effort. But unfortunately, we've turned it around, and the way we learn is, for maximum results, we need to put maximum effort. Maximum effort leading to minimum results is what is the order of life today, because of the nature of work being rajasic in nature. When the work is rajasic in nature, work is only functional. What is functional work? We do work only for results. Work is not meant only for results. Work is not meant to be functional. Work is meant to be transformational. Only when work is in any activity that we do, it is not the outer result that matters, it is the inner change that really matters. With every action, with every work that we do, am I able to purify my mind? Am I able to be balanced, stable, equipoised? this process of inner change, inner transformation is most important in every work that we do. If the work that we do is only functional, which means only for the sake of results, then that work will be stressful. Work is not meant to be stressful. Now, work is vital, but it can become vitality sapping if it defines our identity and our worth. Because today, unfortunately, we have let the work that we do define us. Our self-identity and our self-worth in today's world is defined by the nature of work that we do. And therefore, work has become workaholism. And like alcoholism, workaholism also is counterproductive, harmful. It works against our holistic well-being. And therefore, what happens is we think we are working responsibly only to find out that we are working responsibly to stay irresponsible. What do I mean by staying irresponsible? We are irresponsible to the meaning and purpose of our life. The real true priorities of life are completely missed out in the process of mindlessly doing work. That is why Krishna says, Kriyate bahulayasam. Now, Rajasic work is that work because there are too many objects to be chased. There are too many desirable objects to be chased, too many goals, and therefore I need a lot of energy to choose one over the other. And while I am chasing one, suddenly pops out one more, and then I am chasing two, then I am chasing three, I am chasing 100. Vyavasayatmika buddhi eke kurunandana bahushakahyanantascha budhayo avyayasayinam, Krishna says. It seems a wise man was passing by. There was a massive construction work that was going on. Several hundred workers are working on the construction site. So this wise man passes by and he strikes a conversation with a worker. And this worker is so very disgruntled, a frowning face, and clearly this wise man could see that this worker was ill-equipped to the job that he was doing. He was trying to sculpt something and he was breaking the stones and doing very shoddy work. He was actually trying to escape doing real work. And when he strikes a conversation with him, the worker says, "No, I really don't know what's going on. I hate this work." Then he moves on. And he strikes a conversation with another worker who's very, very busy doing 3, 4, 5 things at the time. And he strikes a conversation, he says, "I'm very busy, but let me tell you, I have to make money for my family. I'm thinking of buying a house. And I'm also thinking of taking over the contract of this construction site. So I have to work 3 shifts. I have to make a lot of money. I have to grow. I have to do this. I have no time talking with you." And he moves on. And this wise man sees that this man, his work is also shoddy. And then he moves on, he strikes a conversation with the third worker, moving on. And then this worker, he could see that there was a twinkle in his eye. And he was enjoying the work that he's doing. And he looked at the wise man. When the wise man struck a conversation with him, he says, and he asks him, "Hey, what are you doing?" He looks up and says, "You know what? I'm building a temple for my Krishna." The work site, the construction site is actually building a temple. Now, the one who has the highest goal in his mind, building the temple for his Krishna, and in that process, he's enjoying his work and he's focused with that one goal, and his work is of highest quality. The one who is running after multiple goals, not knowing that the end goal is actually building that temple, is Rajasic in nature. His work is Rajasic, he's stressed out, and his work is shoddy. And the first worker obviously is one who is tamasic in nature, who is destroying, doing work that is destructive in nature. Vyavasayatmika buddhi ekeha gurunandana bahushakahyanantascha buddhayo avyayasayira. Bahushaka anantascha. When there are too many desires in the mind, too many goals in the mind, buddhayo avyayasayina. The mind is irresolute. It cannot be equipoised. It is so very distracted, is in a state of disarray all the time, because there are too many competing goals, too many competing desires, too many things to chase after. A lot of energy is spent on trying to choose one over the other, and constantly the goals and goalposts are changing, and in spite of expending too much of energy, the work that is done is shoddy and productive. Kriyate bahulayasam, Krishna says. Today everybody talks about work-life balance. Work-life balance is great, but then the work-life balance that is talked about is at work, slave and crave; in life, slave and crave. Essentially, work-life balance is dividing the time for work and life. But essentially what happens, we end up slaving and craving at work, and we end up slaving and craving in life too. That is really not bringing balance to work and life. Bringing balance to work and life truly is, work should be centered around Krishna. Life should be centered around Krishna. Slaving and craving can only be to Krishna, not to the world. Only then there can be true balance. Until then, everything in life is imbalanced. There can be no balance at all. We are expending too much unwanted energy, being stressed, being anxious, and being unproductive all the time. Kriyate bahulayasam. Tat rajasam udaharatam. Now, tamasa, Krishna then says, goes on, anubandham kshayam himsam anapekshacha paurusham. What is tamasic work? Tamasic work we can all very easily relate to. Anubandham kshayam himsam anapekshacha paurusham. Krishna is qualifying the nature of tamasic work. Mohat arabhyate karma yattat tamasam uchyate, he says. Mohat arabhyate karma. Any work that is done under delusion, any work that is done by a perverted mind, work that is done by driven by falsity, by imagining falsity, by doubting things. What kind of a doubt it is? Like a patient doubting a doctor. That is that kind of falsity, a patient doubting a doctor. This is the kind of delusion. Any work that is done under delusion, mohad arabhyate karma, anubandham kshayam himsam. Anubandham, disregarding consequences. Work that is done disregarding consequences. Essentially, this is the culture that is constantly promoted in the society. Live for the moment culture. Live for the moment culture. Consequences do not matter. Just live for the moment. And that kind of a culture results in destructive consequences. Anubandham here, disregarding consequences. Kshayam, himsam. Kshaya is violence towards things. Himsa is violence towards people. Work that results in a loss, not self-loss, loss to others, violence to others, harming others, harming things. Kshaya is harming things, himsa is harming people. When we look at work that is sattvic in nature, we see work that is sattvic in nature is beneficial to other people, to the people around, beneficial to the world, and the performer of that sattvic work also progresses with inner transformation. This is the nature of sattvic work. When work is rajasic, the performer of the work becomes sick, is stressed and anxious all the time, and there is no benefit to others. Always there is only selfishness, there is greed, and there is no benefit whatsoever to others. That is the nature of rajasic work. When it comes to tamasic work, it is not about no benefit to others, it is harmful to others. It is harmful to the self, it is harmful to others. And it is done under delusion. A mind which is deluded, a mind which is perverted, is the mind that drives this kind of work. Tamasic. Anubandham, kshayam, himsam. All the three. Anapekshacha. Anapekshacha, paurusham. Paurusham is capacity. With disregard to one's own capability, one's own ability, doing work recklessly. I cannot walk into a gym and try to lift 50 kgs. I will break my hands. One needs to know one's capabilities, one's capacity to do. The nature of work has to be chosen based on the realization of one's own capacity. Work that is tamasic in nature is destructive because the one is reckless, totally reckless. Anapekshacha paurusham. Mohat arabhate karma. No, the nature of the work which is tamasic is when it is done with an animalistic intentions. Also completely forgetting the truth, completely oblivious of the truth. No, animals do not understand the value of time, but humans are expected to understand the value of time. But when one is tamasic, the value of time is completely not understood at all. It's completely ignored. It's like somebody was asked this question, what did you do yesterday? He said, yesterday I did nothing. What are you going to do today? Today I'm going to finish what I did yesterday. The completely oblivious to truth that time is ticking. Life, there is a lifespan, there is a shelf life, and within that lifespan there is an opportunity given to accomplish a mission, to leverage the resources given to do something meaningful, to do something purposeful. The meaning and the purpose are completely lost. Tamasic work is essentially breaking human rights. Why? Because tamasic work is animalistic in nature. Because to be human is to recognize meaning and purpose in life. If we do work which is meaningless and not purposeful, then it is animalistic in nature. The nature of work which is tamasic, Krishna says, it is essentially self-destructive. Why? Because we are not exercising the choice whether to indulge in that work or not to indulge in that work. Animals only have one capability. The capability of animals is unidimensional. How to fulfill bodily desires. All living beings are driven by bodily desires, no doubt. Animals have only one capability. How to fulfill the bodily desires. They cannot say no to fulfilling bodily desires. If a cat sees a rat, the cat cannot ponder and say, today is a sacred day, so I am fasting, so I will not pounce on the rat. The cat by design has to pounce on the rat. It cannot say no to fulfilling its bodily desire. When a cow is taken to a farm, it can only go and graze on the left side or on the right side. But it will graze. It can only how to fulfill its bodily desires. Humans also have the choice to how to fulfill bodily desires. They also have a choice. We also have a choice whether to fulfill our bodily desires. It's bidimensional, not unidimensional. It's not just how to fulfill our bodily desires. whether to fulfill. A choice can be made, and that choice is a very powerful choice. A choice whether to indulge or not to indulge. And that choice becomes weaker and weaker. That choice making becomes weaker and weaker with tamasic jnana. And when there is tamasic jnana, then there is no choice made at all. It is all about how to fulfill bodily desires. It is the question of whether to fulfill does not exist at all. And that is the reason why Krishna says that is self-destructive and destructive to others as well. So now Krishna has taken up jnana and karma, and he has classified both of them into sattvika, rajasika, tamasika. He will now take up karta, the doer, and classify the doer into three categories to complete his exposition on the classification of the entire process of action, analyzing the action. So in the next session, we will take up the classification of the karta, the doer. Until then, let us continue to reflect on the power of desiring and the necessity for us to harness this power and transform it into a sattvika power. Sarva Krishna.